All right. Welcome back for another episode, number 173 of the Fantasy Timeline. Proud member of the Dynasty Addicts Podcast Network. I'll be your host today, Drew at dr_pra, and I'm here with Bill again at Super Duper Flex. Bill, you ready for Thanksgiving?
Oh yeah, this is the long weekend of football. Now they have a game on Friday,
Yeah,
so Saturday is really the only day with nothing, and otherwise we have 4 out of 5 days basically of football coming forward, and then there's always college. But we're talking about NFL, so yeah, it's a lot of. Hopefully, we all have a lot of free time to catch these games, but it seems like we'll be able to, if we're getting hankering to watch some football, we're not going to have a problem finding it. So
yeah, there'll be plenty on, and we might even touch on a little bit of college here. We do Dynasty talk, so there are a couple of guys that could have played their last game in their home stadium. So some interesting kind of foreshadowing and looking ahead here. But yeah, Thursday, Friday this year, which is wild. And then Sunday, Monday, of course. How are you feeling? Your Lions are an annual staple on Thursday. So I think typically you kind of just anticipate the K game is going to be beyond. But first time in how many years that you're 8-2? 1960 something?
Yeah, 1962. So 60 years. That was 13 years before I was born. And I'm old. So like that just tells you like how many there's parents, like there's senior citizens that have never seen this. So it's cool, or at least 60-year-olds that have never seen it.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah. So that,
it's cool. It was a fun game. They didn't look great. They made had a lot of turnovers, but still somehow won. And it's I guess this was the first time ever in NFL history that a team had four turnovers, or it might have been a 3 turnover differential, and less than 20 minutes of possession time, and won the game.
yeah. Yeah, well, which is wild, right? I mean, those are the games that you want to see yourself win. I'm just thinking about, right now feels like the better part of the last decade. The Chargers have been on the other side of that, right?
Yeah.
And just kind of what differentiates the two outcomes there, and what that does for your morale and moving forward. And now, knock on wood, the very, very worst you're going to see here. It's not great. It'd be an 8-9 season, right? If everything just goes sideways, but you're climbing toward double-digit wins that seem doable in the next few weeks here, and then all of a sudden you start looking ahead at, what postseason could look like, and what an exciting time to be, kind of part of that franchise and seeing the evolution of what Dan Campbell's brought. And I know a lot of folks this year kind of had written off what Goff could do, and so yeah, exciting time.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see what happens. I don't have like that great of expectations really in the playoffs, but just making the playoffs and maybe winning their home game will be a win of a season for sure.
Yeah, I mean, imagine, how incredible is that you have a likelihood or a strong possibility of hosting a playoff game back in Detroit again, which again, it's been a long time since that's happened.
Yeah, I just got my driver's license at that point.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Very cool. Not too many major surprises this week. I mean, it was a couple of good divisional games that came up. The Browns continue to roll. I think as I'm looking at the slate from this past week, Denver on a streak now, huh? A lot of skepticism. I know I personally made fun of a little bit of some of the clips there of Sean Payton and Russell Wilson early in the offseason. And, it certainly looked like a rough start to things. Javonte was just coming back, and Russ figuring some things out again. But thoughts there? Anything that you're seeing with them that helps kind of explain for you why they're doing what they're doing at this point?
Well, I think it's their defense, right? Like, I mean, that's the biggest turnaround. Is they very much remind me of the Lions last year in regards to their defense was just getting torched early, and then something happened, and they've really become respectable. And I was actually surprised because I don't have any Russ, but I looked it up and he's only thrown 4 picks this year. So it's like, and has like 16 touchdowns, or that's what it was when I looked. So
Yeah.
that surprised me. So he's definitely become more of a efficient game manager. And, that's probably what you need at this point, since he's not as mobile.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I think Cortland Sutton looks like the guy, because he can kind of go make catches, whereas Judy's kind of the guy that needs to have the ball placed right, just so for him to catch and run. So they've been pretty impressive, and I'm happy they won this last week, and I mean, I guess Peyton's better. We were kind of making fun of them after they lost to the Jets with the comments about, their OC and how it was a terrible coaching job. And, but right after that, he must have dropped the hammer, and said, all right, I'm taking control of everything, and this is how we're going to do it.
Yeah. Speaking of another Peyton, right? The last time that the Chiefs lost to the Broncos was when Peyton Manning was there. Over 10 years ago. Not only some tough divisional wins. I know they beat my Bills a few weeks back. That 70-point drubbing to the Dolphins seems so far in distant memory at this point, based on how they performed the last few weeks. So feel good for some of those guys there, right? I think it's easy to forget these guys it's their livelihood. Nobody walks out there on Sunday saying, I want to suck today, or I want to have a terrible game and let somebody down. But really cool to see some of those guys be able to experience that turnaround. And I think that just feels good knowing, again, you and I have been in the working world for a long time. Being able to see success from work matters. Let's jump in real quick here. In case they only have a few minutes, we've got a quick question from Rafael Rivera, half PPR, trading Hurts, Kincaid, Olave, and Saquon for CMC, Kupp, and Pittman. My team would be Kyler, Brees, CMC, Monty, Pacheco, Achane, CD, Kupp, Puka, London, and McBride. And I think we're going to go with your general assumption here, Bill. We're talking redraft, right? So how does this hit you here?
Yeah, I mean, it has Kyler, so you're giving up Hurts. That's, a little I don't know if I'm ready to trust Kyler, but I don't think he's terrible either. So I think he's definitely a starting quarterback. But you're definitely taking a hit there. McBride, Kincaid, I don't think there's that vast of a difference. So I'm okay with that. So basically a drop from Hurts to Kyler, Kincaid to McBride, and then you get rid of Olave and Saquon. Upgrade CMC. Pittman, Olave is probably similar. So you're getting a Kupp for the drop in Hurts is the way I kind of look at it. Yeah, I like it. I mean, Kupp is kind of like that dice roll, right? He could be a league winner, or, this might just be the end, depending, where his body starts breaking down. But yeah, I like it. It helps probably overall your lineup looks better. So I would much rather get rid of Saquon because it looks like their schedule is pretty rough moving forward. And CMC is just, he's like Kelsey at running back. So, I mean, just such a difference compared to the RB2.
Yeah, week in and week out, right? So, I mean, that's tough to go from Hurts to Kyler now. Feels like a bigger gap than it might have a couple seasons ago. But again, I think Arizona probably did it right by Kyler and waited till he was fully healthy to come back. It doesn't look like he's been limited at all. So similar upside, though he's not getting every single goal line rush with the tush push is almost a guaranteed touchdown. But that roster after the trade looks pretty solid, right? I mean, you're starting probably two of the top, 5 running backs here. We'll see what Achane does. I know a lot of people are disappointed with his first game back this week, so we'll see what happens if he plays on Friday much or if they let him rest for the next week. And then, I mean, CD, one of Kupp or Puka. Yeah, wide receiver. And then you get Pittman as well, which isn't bad. So, overall, I think that feels pretty good. It's half PPR, so I'm not super worried about the wide receiver swaps there. Olave is going to get a little bit more action with Michael Thomas out, but it could be Jameis thrown at him too. So who knows? what that'll look like. So
Right.
I like it. I like that move, and I think that's a good push for playoffs here. Which I guess kind of segues into I just got a notice on Sleeper for one of my leagues that the trade deadline's coming up this week. I think a lot of the redraft leagues we're in are probably getting pretty close as we hit week 12, 13, certainly by 14, right? How are you feeling with your playoff push in some of your leagues? I know a few weeks ago we talked about you had a significant percentage that were still viable for playoffs. Are you still in a similar spot, or have injuries come back to change any of that landscape for you?
I mean, everything's kind of shifted around, but I'm still kind of in that same position where like 15 of my 17 are at least in the hunt. I think they were all in the playoffs at that point. I think that a couple of them have dropped to like seventh seed or something like that. But yeah, I'm still kind of battling, and so it's like those are really tough when you're in that range, because it's like, do I get aggressive? And then if I miss the playoffs, I'm totally like just, I've just completely like leveraged part of my future. Or do I just let it roll and see what happens? But then I'm not really feeling like I'm being as aggressive as I need to be. So I'm still kind of really on those. I'm struggling, but it's a case by case on those. I've definitely made moves on the ones I'm more sure of my situation, which is probably like, I don't know, I would say probably like 2/3 of my teams I know are cemented into the playoffs. So just trying to kind of, I think there's maybe like 2/3 of mine that do not have a trade deadline. So it's kind of a little bit different, but the ones that do, it's definitely time to start making moves, because there's only 2-3 weeks if you do it right before the playoffs. But like you said, there's some of them that start even earlier, which I'm not a huge fan of. But I get it. It's just different dynamics. And I know safe leagues, I think, are this week. So, it's just something like I like it where you have to kind of predict like what your depth will be. And you need to kind of make some tough decisions right now. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know if I completely strayed, and I'm not even sure I answered the question, but
I was, I forgot that, a lot of our leagues, we don't have that deadline. So it does mean you can kind of kick the can down a little bit longer and see, do you make the playoffs? What seed do you have? And you start looking ahead at your weekly opponents and seeing what you think your odds are. And there's arguments on both sides of that, right? There are some times where a trade looks like it's going to totally shift that matchup, and then it fizzles out completely. And, and then on the other side, there are folks that just hold tight, and it looks like they're just going to kind of take their beating this week. And all of a sudden, an unsung hero comes out. All of a sudden, Trevor Lawrence remembers how to find Calvin Ridley, and here we are. And now you've won your week with those two guys. So, I'd love to talk through a couple here. I know in Superflex Army 2, you made a few moves this week. You got hurt by the Andrews injury, which I think probably drove a little bit of that. Is there one of the, I think, was it three moves you made there in the last like 48 hours?
Yeah, I made 3 trades within like 4 hours after the week rolled over. The one of them I had agreed to with the team, but the offer was made after Thursday's game last week, and it involved T. Higgins, so like it couldn't be accepted till after. And that's where I moved Deshaun Watson, Gabe Davis, and like a 25-second for T. Higgins and Geno Smith. Deshaun Watson, I don't know. Like I have other quarterbacks, and then I got Geno, which helps my depth right now. And I have a decent amount of Deshaun Watson, so I kind of just felt like hedging and getting rid of a little bit of him. And then I upgrading from Gabe Davis to T. Higgins. Moving forward, I'm happy with that. So, that one was pretty cut and dry. And that was from the other team is like in complete rebuild, so it helps them. And then one of them was just I think I traded DTR and Gallup for Gus Edwards, also another team in kind of a rebuild. So he was happy to get rid of a 33-year-old running back. And then
that's scoring points.
Yeah, that's scoring points, right. And then finally I lost Andrews, and another team who's in a rebuild was willing to I was hoping I could get, he has Laporta, and I was hoping to get him straight up, just because I figure, Andrews might be ranked a little bit higher, but he was like, no, you're going to pay the price because you're getting younger and you're getting a player that's starting the rest of the season.
And he's a Lion.
And he's a Lion. So he knew all of my weak points. This is John Bauer from from Dynasty Theory. So he definitely knew he was going to hammer me with price. And so I had to give up Marquise Brown on top of Andrews. And then he threw back Roschon Johnson and like a third round pick or something. Yeah. So it's just one of those things where it's like, do I make a move for like a Hunter Henry player? And that's not going to be like a difference, and then still end up with Mark Andrews next year. Or do I just kind of pay up, get a young tight end, I gain 5 years, and he plays for my favorite team, and and he'll help me this season, and give up Marquise Brown, who I actually have a inordinate amount of Marquise Brown on my teams, to the point where I need to get rid of some of them but I feel like he's so undervalued at the moment. So it hurt to get rid of him, but it just made a lot of sense for my team, and being a little bit more aggressive. And sometimes you just got to pay the piper to help your team. And it's probably long term I lose that trade, but that's okay, because sometimes you got to do that.
Yeah, no, I think that made a lot of sense, and I think it's fun for folks to hear a little bit of the back and forth and kind of different ways you can ask for value if you know that somebody's got a particular fandom, or again, as we're getting close to playoffs. And I think for the whole season here, you've been the number one seed, highest point scorer, best records. So certainly makes sense to go all in. And yeah, I mean, Laporta at this point, we've had people talking, is he the number one dynasty tight end overall in different conversations based on his youth and what he's shown already in year one.
Yeah, I mean, I like Laporta, and I think he's going to be good, and he's going to be probably a top 6 tight end going forward. I'm not sure he's a tight end 1. I'm just not sure he'll ever be utilized that much. I almost view him more as a usage like George Kittle, where you're not really going to be sure when he pops, or you have to wait for one of the players to be out for him to pop, kind of thing.
Sure.
But he'll still get but the difference is he's going to have that floor that I feel like George Kittle doesn't have.
Yeah.
So, because he's not out there to block where Kittle is. So, but yeah, I'm happy to have him. And I think that like there's other guys that will always have a higher ceiling than him. I probably think Kincaid is a guy that, if I were to say, who do I want for this week, I would probably pick Kincaid every week. But yeah, overall, I'm happy to have a young tight end that's shown, that he can contribute so early in his career.
Yeah. I mean, his lowest week right now in our league, which is 1.5, 1.75.
1.5. Yeah.
1.5 is 9.6, or I'm sorry, 8.3 this last week, then a 9.6. Everything else is double digits plus, including his very first week on the opening Thursday night game. So yeah, I think there's definitely a very safe floor, and he's topping out in the mid 20s. Which, I mean, if you're getting 20 some points from a tight end every 3 or 4 weeks, that feels very, very good. So, yeah, I love that side of it. Do you have any others from any other leagues that you feel like would be interesting to throw out there and let people hear what's going on?
So I went the other direction, and I added a Mark Andrews in a league. I'm basically, this is a league where you play against an opponent and then also the league median. And so you can go from 0-2 to 2-0 each week. And my team is 8-14 right now, but it's the highest scoring team in the league. Wow. And so it's like, I'm outscoring everybody that's not in the playoffs by over 200 points. And so it's like, I'm kind of in this, but it just tells you how hot and cold my team is to be 8-14 and be the highest scoring team in the league.
Yeah.
It's like, either I'm scoring 200 or I'm scoring 100. And, it's just, could I win the league? Absolutely. But it's far more likely. The way I drafted this team was I added, like, I have Mahomes, Kelsey, Kupp, Derrick Henry. Those are like my 4 old producing guys. And I've just I'm so worried about Kupp. Henry's had 2 kind of single digit weeks. So, I mean, even Kelsey doesn't quite look what he has looked earlier in the year. It's like he looks a little dinged up a little bit. And so my thought process is either do I try to trade Kelsey to the guy who had Andrews and is the top seed, and just say, I might still make the playoffs and let's just see what happens, but I'm just going to have to do it without Kelsey. So we ended up working something out where he offered me Mark Andrews and Musgrave for Kelsey.
Okay.
And, I felt that's a very fair offer. And I told him I would only do it if I could move Derrick Henry also to him. So, and he got a discount on that. He gave me Tajay Spears and like an early third.
Okay.
So basically it was Kelsey and Henry for Andrews, Musgrave, Spears, and a third.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it helps you get a little bit younger. I don't know how long Spears will last.
It's just a running back, so I'm not too worried about it. I'd rather get rid of Henry now because I feel like this is it, and it's granted he has a really good schedule moving forward for the playoffs. So like if I'm a surefire contender, like he's a guy I'm happy to have on my team, but this is one of those things where it's just like, okay, Kupp's really the only guy now that on my roster that I'm going to try to move before the playoffs. And, I'll probably make the playoffs. Likelihood of me winning either way was going to be pretty low. So I'll still have a puncher's shot, but I'm no longer Mike Tyson. I'm more of Floyd Mayweather.
Well, I mean, he's done pretty well for himself. So and then you start off next year with Mahomes and Andrews as your veteran core.
Yep. And so it is one of those things where it was a hard decision because when you're the highest scoring team in the league, it's like, man, I can crush anybody I play when my team's on. But it's been like once every 3 weeks that my team's on, and the other weeks are just like horrible. And so it was a tough decision. Sometimes you got to make those tough decisions. Like just like in that last one where sometimes you got to take losses. Sometimes you got to, and sometimes I'm this way where I almost implode things too early. And I think I would bet you probably 3 out of 4 people would have kept that team intact. But like the way I play Dynasty, I don't ever want my team to be just so decimated after the season that I feel more comfortable. It's a comfort thing for me. So you seem like you're a little more aggressive when you probably wouldn't have done what I just did.
I based on the players that you listed, I would have moved Kupp earlier. He was. We've had plenty of conversations between him and Puka over the
when he
season.
popped, I should have moved him.
That would have been mine. And again, it depends on the scoring and so forth. So I'm assuming it's tight end premium. And having Kelsey and Mahomes as a stack is definitely nice. But you've got to know your league too, and some of the folks that you're with. Because what happens? Even let's say you do make a deep run, and let's say you break even, right? Maybe you win the 3rd place matchup this year. Kind of get your buy-in back, and now you're looking at the next 6-7 months where you've got to sit on this roster and wonder when's the right moment to try to make some moves here.
Well, and nobody's traded for those guys, in the offseason. You're not moving Kupp, you're not moving Henry. Kelsey's really the only guy you might be able to move, but Kelsey even last offseason was you could buy him at a discount. So it's one of those things that during the season you have to wait till next season. Then you have a 30-year-old running back. You have a 35-year-old tight end. That's really tough. So
Yeah.
It's just one of those things where it's like, okay, let's bite the bullet right now and do it. So
Yeah, I think getting out to get Andrews, I mean, that feels great. Even if it
yeah,
took you Kelsey and Henry to get to Andrews alone, based on where your team is, and I'm assuming you have some picks coming up this year where you can kind of reload at some spots too, or have you traded some of those away to get to the roster you've got now?
yeah. I mean, I have I think I just have my normal picks.
Yeah,
My
yeah.
picks
So
plus the plus that third I got.
yeah,
So
so you're not depleted. It's not like you're going into this with just Mahomes,
yep.
Andrews, Cup, and a couple of kind of depth guys, and no first or second, where it's just like you're kind of cycling through a whole nother season here. So, no, I think, again, depending on the context, I could go either way on that. I do agree. I probably would have been more likely to hold out for another week or two, depending on if is there a trade line in this or trade deadline in this league.
I don't believe so.
So yeah, so I might have waited to see, am I going to get into the playoffs and then, really try to go after one of the contenders at that point as well and see, do you get a slightly more even deal? But that's all speculative. There's no way to really know at this point if there would have been a value shift. So if your comfort level is getting out now, I think that's a great move.
Yeah, and I think the big thing was getting Andrews, and who's to say that he wouldn't have traded Andrews away to
Yeah.
somebody else? So it was one of those things where I feel a lot better having that elite tight end
Yeah.
going into next year.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? What if the person in front of you in 9th, 10th, 11th place had Kittle or something? All of a sudden, he got desperate and did Andrews for Kittle, and
Yep,
you get sick to your stomach watching that happen, right?
exactly. So sometimes you got to strike while the iron's hot,
Yeah,
and yeah. And I gotta say, we had a ton of banter back and forth, trying to figure that trade out, and um, a lot of times I'm really short with trades. It's like I send an offer, they send me another one back, which is like completely ridiculous in my eyes compared to what their offer was,
hmm,
but where there's no really conversation happening, and so you just kind of like, okay, nope, I'm done, kind of thing. And
yeah,
like we started out immediately having a conversation, and I think I have to do that a lot more because we really work things out. We listen to each other, kind of what our thoughts were, and like like I asked him for Rashid Shaheed, and he's like, well, Rashid Shaheed, because you get points for first downs in this, and
okay,
he's like a top, he's a wide receiver too in this league. There's just no way I can include him for what you're asking on top. And I'm like, okay, like, but if he would have just said no, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
so I think sometimes, it's so easy not to have conversations with people when you're doing these trade offers. And sometimes it's real efficient and easy. But I think that there's probably missed out opportunities when you're not having conversations with your trade partner, and you're just doing it all through the offers.
yeah.
So yeah,
I
it
would
was,
totally agree.
yeah,
Yeah, when you don't have the context, we all write our own narrative, right? It reminds me. I just rewatched a clip of this old Key and Peele sketch where they're texting back and forth about meeting up at the bar, and one of them is getting super offended at everything that the other one sends back, while the other guy is just super chill, like, "Yeah, let's go now." And so one guy shows up with a baseball bat, ready to brawl, and the other guy's just there with two beers in his hand, like, "Here we are, let's have a great time," right? So yeah, I think that's super important. Again, getting a feel for your leagues, and I've always not always. I've tried to become more conscious of, even when I write comments in there, like if somebody sends me a wild offer, I'm not trying to burn a bridge at this point.
nope,
Try to be realistic, and if I feel like there's something I need to share, like that's way off. Because actually, going back to your trade with Lindsay in Superflex Army 2, I think 2 weeks ago, I had tried to get T Higgins from her as part of a trade when I lost Kirk Cousins, because I thought I saw maybe she was gonna rethink where she was in the standings this year. So we were looking at a Geno trade to try to fill in, and I just wasn't prepared to pay what she was asking for Geno, but I tried to balance it out with including T, and she rejected it, but she let me know, I think some of the values that we have here look a little bit off. They're different. So it's like, okay, that's fine, and I respect that. So I'm glad that she was able to get something to work out, and that you guys were able to make something happen there, and that gives me a better picture the next time if I'm looking at somebody that I value similarly to T Higgins. I can either try to have some dialogue first, or I can rethink my offer before I send it over.
yeah. And I mean, it could just be that she preferred, player X over player Y, because her value's off, according to whatever.
Yep.
And I mean, we're all different that way. Like one guy in that trade that we were just talking about for me with the Kelsey, I had offered Gabe Davis, and he's like, I do not want Gabe Davis. Like, just he's 0 in this trade. So it's like, okay, like,
Yeah.
I'm happy to have Gabe Davis, but like, it's we all have our odd things that we just don't ever want player. Like, for example, I just added Drew Lock in 2 leagues. Like, what the hell's going on? It's like, I would have never had Drew Lock on my team 2 years ago, but his value was totally different. So, it's just kind of transitioning from Drew Lock to Kenny Pickett. What are your thoughts or hopes moving forward now that the offensive coordinator change has happened in Pittsburgh? Do you have any expectations, or just Kenny Pickett suck?
I think I'd probably fall more into that camp that he's just not a good quarterback in general. I think watching the Raiders, right? You watch them go through their change, even the Bills, right? We moved on a couple weeks ago and certainly had a different performance against the Jets this past week. Change sometimes is just a good spark for the group of guys that's there. So it's possible we might see a little bit of a resurgence over the next week or two for the Steelers, but I don't think it's anything that'll be sustainable. And I think if they have a chance in the next draft or two, they're going to either draft his replacement or they're going to have to find somebody else they'd like better to trade for.
So if he does anything this week, it's like time to trade is in your eyes. Yeah.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. If he pops off at all, I think the best case is, maybe who was it that they were comparing? Was it Anthony Richardson? Since October 2nd or something like that, Anthony Richardson and Kenny Pickett have the same number of touchdowns.
They both run for 2 touchdowns.
And right.
And Richardson only played the 1 week.
That 1 week, right? Yeah. So, I think if, let's say Pickett goes out and throws 2 touchdowns and maybe scrambles for 40, 50 yards and has a 20-point game.
I mean, because he has that in him. I mean, he totally does. He can run the ball, and so it's interesting because he's not running the ball, and so if you could get. I mean, could he fall into the Howell kind of range minus all the volume? Because he's not going to get the volume that Howell does. Like, that could be intriguing to somebody. He's still a young quarterback that maybe you can trade him away if you're a contender to a team that's in a rebuild that's going to try to catch lightning in a bottle. Because right now you can't get shit for him.
Nope.
So
I think
I only have him in 1 league, but like he's just sitting there not being touched,
Same. I have the pleasure in my one Trade Addicts League this week to figure out, do I want to start Kenny Pickett or do I want to start Desmond Ridder back in the saddle? But that season is pretty well gone, so I'm just waiting for next year. But I think if you can flip him even into, would you rather have Geno or Pickett?
Oh, I'd rather have Geno. That's like, I have Geno in a fair amount of my league or teams as like my 3rd quarterback. Because I'm comfortable with that. Like, I know he can put some big weeks up. He hasn't, but like, I know it's in him, and I trust his offense more. And he's more of an aggressive quarterback, like that. He's going to put the ball, places that he shouldn't, kind of at times. So I would prefer a gunslinger as my 3rd, just in case I need to get points. I can throw him in there, and
Who else would you? So let's say Pickett does, go off for 20 points this week and looks decent, limits the turnovers. What kind of range besides, like a Howell, a Geno, is Baker in the realm of possibility? Or
I don't know if I'm even going to do quarterback. I would almost prefer to look at a different position for somebody who's maybe in rebuild that's looking for a quarterback that maybe they're willing to get rid of, a different position because they just want bullets, at QB. But like, who would I like?
Running back. Let's say you're a contender and you want to add some depth at running back.
Yeah, I mean, I think could you get, like, if they have like a guy like Pollard on there, could you get that in a super flex? Like, I don't know. Like, Pollard's been underperforming. Maybe they're, he's 26. They're like, he doesn't really fit my team. Maybe you have to add a little bit, like.
I think after this last week, you might need to.
He still only got 60 yards. He just happened to score a touchdown,
He did.
So like, there's something like that, like where at least it can help my lineup.
Yeah. Would you take a David Montgomery back for him?
Yeah. Yeah.
Brian Robinson?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
His teammate Jaylen Warren?
Probably not, because I just feel the value is greater. And I don't trust Jaylen Warren ever being like a falling into like what Brian Robinson has fallen into, where he's like the volume guy. I almost think like Jaylen Warren is where he should be. Like he should be in that position, right? Like he's Tony Pollard last year. Yeah. And like just keep him there. Let Najee be Zeke and just enjoy what you can get out of him. But
what about Najee?
Oh no. I'm
You're out.
Najee is, he's like what, 25 or 26. He was an old rookie when he came out.
Yeah, he was older.
And he looks fine. He looked a little spry the last game I watched, but like, there's just a different level between him and Warren. And I'm just not sure you can put that genie back in the bottle at this point,
So Pollard, Amante, I'm trying to think of who else would be kind of in that.
And this is for a 12 team. If it's 14 team, it's going to be, you're going to need more.
Quarterback is quarterback at that point. But for a 12 team, which a lot of us are. Yeah, so I think the bottom line is if you can get a decent offer that you like for Pickett.
Nico Collins, like, could you do that?
I would do that in a heartbeat.
Yeah, and I probably value-wise they're pretty similar, I would guess. So, just guys like that could maybe help if you need depth at a position. The only one I have him in is the 14-team league. So it's like, is it worth having him as my third quarterback? I don't know the answer. I don't think so.
I don't either, but you have to reconcile yourself with what's the lowest value you'll take back to.
Yeah. Cause if you're a contender, is it worth having him just as your backup, just in case one of your starters gets hurt? You know what I mean? And there's a lot of things you got to weigh. So like, would I trade him for Baker? I potentially would. Like if we're, maybe you can get a little plus on top because of the age difference. Baker and Gus.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or something like that. Like where it's, Gus is worthless to that team. And
I'll even throw a third in with Kenny Pickett.
Yeah. So that's something, that's something I need to look into when we're done with this. I might go right to that league and see what I can do. It's, I think you're right, because sometimes we get a little too greedy when there's that bump in value and you think, oh, maybe this is a start of something, and it's like where I missed selling Cup that one time. It's like, okay, well, he's getting all those targets and he's doing awesome those first two games back. It's back to the same Cooper Kupp and then, nothing, So, I think when we need to be cognizant of, this is one of the last times you're going to have a chance to sell this guy, or ask yourself, is this one of the last times you're going to be able to sell this guy? And if it's more likely yes than no, then it's time to move him.
Yeah. And additionally, are you okay if you miss out on this window? If this is something where, great, he's my fourth quarterback, whatever, I'm stocked on draft picks the next 2 years, that changes what your urgency is. But
totally,
if this is I need one other position player to make my playoff run and I can't start 4 quarterbacks, let's move,
Yep.
So, any other, I know Fields came back this week from some injury.
He looked good. He was very elusive. He did a good job with his running. He's still Justin Fields when it comes to processing. Like if he's not locked in on DJ Moore or his first read, it's trouble. If things get a little wonky, that's what the Lions knew they had to do, is just make them uncomfortable. And, then and their play calling is a little suspect. So it's like they stopped running them in the second half for whatever reason. And that led to their demise. And they weren't aggressive, kicking field goals instead of going for it and things like that. or like a 3rd and 7 and they run the ball, just
Yeah.
things like that to get a better field goal position. So,
Yeah.
But I mean, I just think that he is who he is, and we're at this point. Is he going to be good enough to salvage his job there? And I just don't. I don't see it.
No,
especially if they
looking
end
rough.
up with the number 1 pick. With if Carolina doesn't like make a run right now, I mean, they could be in trouble if Carolina makes a run and all of a sudden they have pick,
4 and 7 or something,
5 and 8 or something like that. Unless they trade up,
Yeah.
But yeah, it's sadly, I think it's just better now if he goes to another team.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's where it will probably end up. But I mean, the worst case is, right? I guess the worst case is he's a backup somewhere next year.
I don't see it. I don't see him being a backup anywhere. Like, I think if he goes to another team, he's getting traded and they're going to view him as their starter. Like, who's going to there's going to be teams that need a quarterback, and I think he's a starter next year to at least start the season.
Yeah. His job to lose.
I can't see there being any situation where he's going to, unless he goes to a team like, and I'm using the Lions as an example, you have a quarterback who is immobile. You have a good play caller who wants to get creative using 2 different types of quarterbacks. But then that's bad for fantasy, and he still can. So like, that's the only thing I could see is if he fell into a spot like that where it's almost like Taysom Hill and Derek Carr. I mean, not in the same usage, but like that type of thing where they kind of, take away opportunity for each other. I have to think he starts next year. I just can't see a team trading for him, giving up a decent amount of capital, and then him not be their starter.
Yeah. I was just imagining, what if he went to the Rams and sat behind Stafford for his last year?
Yeah, that could be something like that. If I hadn't considered that. Yeah, like do something like that. I think that his athleticism would take over pretty quickly, though, and they would just want to get him in, as soon as possible. But that, I guess that could be. I just don't think he's bad enough to be a backup yet.
Yeah. So if you've got him, hang on to him. Don't sell out cheap. If you have somebody who's panicking on him, send some offers.
Yeah, it's a good time to buy him just because people are a little uneasy. And if like with me being confident, like I haven't gone out and tried to add him anywhere, but maybe that's something I should do if I believe he's truly a starter somewhere. Yeah, I don't know. Who's going to sell him, though? You know what I mean? Because he's kind of got that lower price right now. And what was that you said, Drew?
Just hypothetically, not that it would ever really happen, but what would you have to add to Kenny Pickett if he has a good game to get to Justin Fields if Justin Fields has a down game this week?
Oh, a first?
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
It would have to be a first, I think. I just don't know how many people, like if you're a rebuild, are you really going to trade him? Unless you feel like you can get a decent price.
Yeah.
Or did you just say, let's see what happens? And because you don't want to, it's that sunk cost where people are like, I don't want to lose in this. So I'm just going to wait and see. And then maybe, it ends up worse, but I don't see it getting worse, especially entering 2024, September 2024.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see, in a week or two here after he has a couple more games, kind of go into the DLF Trade Finder and see what people have been moving him around for.
I'm actually going to pull up like what he's going for in sleeper leagues right now.
Cool. Well, while you're doing that, I'll kind of set the table here for what you, me, and Josh have been texting about in one of my leagues here for the last couple of days. Some more QB trade options. Another young quarterback who has been in the news almost all season based on how surprising he's been was CJ Stroud. So I've got a 12-team league, Superflex, that we give bonuses for long touchdown passes, and we give bonuses once you cross over 300 yards in a game. And I've got a buddy in there who is pretty enamored with Stroud, and he's been pushing Herbert my direction for the better part of the season, trying to make something work there. And initially, of course, a couple weeks in, it was, Stroud plus a little bit to get to Herbert. Then we got to the place where, okay, is it, it's pretty marginal, and we might trade a couple of like smaller pieces back and forth. And then we started to talk about some wide receivers getting involved. And right now I think we've kind of in principle agreed on the idea of he's only got 2 quarterbacks right now because Daniel Jones was his 3rd quarterback. He's got Josh Allen and he's got Justin Herbert. Number 1 team in our league, highest scorer. So clearly playoff bound. And he just has a personal thing for Stroud, I think. So we're looking at Stroud and Stafford to get Herbert and Waddle back. It's half PPR, by the way. So half PPR, so not massive bonus there. But then again, for wide receivers and running backs, if you get over 100 yards a game, you get a bonus. If you catch a long touchdown, run a long touchdown, you get a bonus. So that's kind of what we've agreed on in principle. That would give me Hurts. That would give me Herbert. That would give me Dak as my QB3 then. And then I'm sitting on like Aiden O'Connell. And
then you got Waddle.
And then I get Waddle out of it to add. I've had T. Higgins, which I'd love to have both of them. I also have Justin Jefferson on that league. So once he comes back, I would have a pretty solid wide receiver core to go with. And then honestly, that would leave my tight ends the weakest spot.
That's okay though. Yeah, I like that trade. I'm surprised that he's willing to do that. That's I feel like, Herbert is worth more than Stroud. And Waddle is worth a lot more than Stafford. But even if you say that Herbert and Stroud are equal, I still feel like that's a big variance between. But he's looking to win this year, and he wants that comfort of having a backup quarterback. And it's not like Waddle's been doing great this year. So, it's a great trade. I like that for you. And I don't know if I like it for him, really, because, like, why not just trade Waddle for – like, Herbert is, like, 3rd in scoring in most leagues.
Yeah, most formats, right?
So
rather quietly, I'd have to say as well.
Yeah, so because their defense isn't good. So they have to be in all of these, shootouts. And
and they just lost Bosa now, so.
Yeah. So, I like that trade a lot for you. I pulled up the trades if you want to hear some.
Let's do a little let's see what you got there start with some that are maybe a little bit closer, and we can see kind of what gets a little bit more.
Okay, I'm just going to kind of pick like what's in 2 days ago was Zay Flowers and Fields for Burrow.
I would take Burrow pretty easily out of that.
Yep. Fields and Dobbs for a 25 first and second.
Oof.
I mean, I think I got to take Fields.
I would take Fields versus waiting for that first, or figuring out what that value is going to be.
Fields, Pollard, and Cooper for Kyron Williams, KJ Osborne, and Josh Allen. I mean, just look at it this way: Allen for Fields, Pollard, and Cooper.
Yeah, easily.
I take Allen, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if Fields is pulling this like Burrow and Allen on the other side, I'm doing it wrong here.
Herbert and Pickett for Fields, Ramondre, Judy, and a first in 26. Fields for Josh Downs in a third.
Because that's the other end of the spectrum.
Yeah. Fields, Warren, and a second for Downs, Musgrave, and a first.
Still probably prefer Fields there.
Yeah, I think so too. Fields and Mooney for Kincaid, a first and a second.
Ooh. In a premium, is it say premium?
1.5.
It's not a huge premium. You're getting me with my Bills fandom there too. Honestly, I think Fields and Kincaid aren't that far apart from me in a tight end premium.
Fields I probably agree with it. Fields and Puka, or Goff and CeeDee Lamb.
Ooh. Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
That's a good one. I am not a huge Puka believer, so I'd probably lean towards the CD Lamb side.
Mm-hmm.
I think Goff, he may be overperforming this year a little bit, but he's still a decent quarterback. The drop from Fields to him doesn't seem very, very big to me.
Yeah, I agree with that. Just more. It's just more. What's the word I'm looking for?
A little more upside with the running.
Well, I mean, for Fields, but you're getting more security, I guess, with Goff, right? Like you just know the situation he's in, and so
Yeah,
I can appreciate getting that consistency, probably a higher floor, definitely a lower ceiling.
yeah, but then you have Lamb,
Yeah, exactly. So,
which is what Lamb's. He's still a top 5 receiver, right?
I would
4.
imagine so. He's probably top 3
Yeah.
at this point.
Yeah.
All right, let's see. Fields for Lawrence. Straight up, I could see that was yesterday.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, that's a tough one. I'd probably take Lawrence.
Yeah, I think I would too. A first, Mark Andrews and Ayuk. For Fields, DJ Moore, and Devontae.
What was the first side?
Ayuk, Mark Andrews, and a 24 first.
And this was just done recently, like
Today.
after the Andrews injury? Okay, so somebody's trying to get win now pieces.
Yep. So Fields, DJ Moore, and Devontae. Like, I like Ayuk a ton. Like, you got to say a first is probably worth more than Devontae at this point, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you think it's going to be the 112 or 111, that's probably in the fair range.
Yeah.
I don't think you're going to get him for an early second. You probably need 2 seconds to get him.
Yeah. All right, and then a first and a second for Fields and Lockett. So it sounds like Fields is just your first round, like worth a first, basically, at this point.
Man.
Yeah. So if you're a playoff team, it might not be a bad to see if you can even a first and second, I think, is fine.
Yeah.
Like especially if you give up the 109 and the 209, like
yeah, kick the can down the road. It sounds like too. You had a 25 first and 25 second or something, or split them, do a 24 first and a 25 second, so you still have a couple of.
Some of those that I was saying were that way.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, so there's definitely some actionable. And if anybody is to search the sleepers, Dynasty Daddy has a sleeper trade database that is really up to date. Like the DLF one, it takes, I think they upload every so often, so you don't see everything in real time. And so at least for a sleeper, it's worth. And there's so many more leagues there. It feels like so you're seeing a ton more trades.
Larger sample.
And it's worth checking that site out, dynasty-daddy.com.
Love that. I'm just going to, while we're talking about it, I'm going to just throw it in DTC here as well. I mean, wow.
I feel like DTC has been a little out of touch when I've been looking at trade values recently. Like super overvaluing like Jordan Love. Like he's like worth 30 some points. And it's like, I don't know who's paying like 102 for Jordan Love. You know what I mean?
Right now in a 12-team Superflex PPR, they have him at 27.5 and what they assume is the 101 at 20, which that feels they've got some adjusting to do there.
Who's this?
This is DTC.
Jordan Love you're talking about? Oh, yeah. They just dropped him because he was like 34 or something.
Yeah, which still, he shouldn't be worth more than what they presume is the 101 next year.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but yeah, so do some homework. And again, we've talked about it before plenty of times. Use the calculators to your advantage where you can. Be realistic. But yeah, if you know somebody only uses DTC and Justin Fields is worth 37.5 points there, go get yourself a couple of firsts for him if you can.
Right.
So
yeah, it's it'll be good luck to everybody. If you guys do make some trades, please share them with us so we can talk about them next week. Yeah. And it sounds like Drew and I are going to be trying to do these earlier shows the next few weeks at least.
Yeah.
And maybe not this early, but I left work early because of the holiday, but maybe like late afternoon Eastern, we can do the next couple shows.
Yeah, we've had a lot of folks jump in there, which has been exciting. So yeah, and if you're listening and you see this, feel free, again, send us what you've got. I know our friends over on the Junkies will do the Find Me a Trade segment, kind of looking ahead. We would love to take the lazy way out and evaluate your trade and be the the armchair quarterback on that soccer.
That's right.
Or the backseat GM. So, but yeah, appreciate you all joining us here. Bill, anything else on your mind before we get ready to eat way too much? And
no, not too much. I would say just start getting active. This is really the time to strike. Whether your team's in rebuild or you're a contender, get yourself set up moving forward. If you have a lot of extra pieces, see if you can do 2-for-1s or something like that for somebody who's rebuilding. This is that time when one of those few times in the dynasty year where you can really get things done. And it's probably the next 3 weeks. And then, then we get closer to draft. So, and happy Thanksgiving to everybody. Nice to see Lindsay pop into the chat, and we appreciate all you guys listening. I mean, I'm thankful to have ears that even listen to my voice talking about this fun game of ours.
Yeah, I will second that. All of that. This is a time of the year where pretty much everybody comes to the marketplace, and everybody is trying to move stuff around. So this is going to be the best chance to get something done. Totally agree with Bill there. And yeah, I totally want to echo the gratitude for being able to do this with you and Josh in different combinations over the last couple of years, Bill. Glad that we still have this platform here. Thanks, Russ, for letting us hang out still and use the login. It's been always something that I look forward to each week. Just kind of talk through things, and whether it leads to something or if it's just kind of throwing some spaghetti against the wall and seeing what sticks. It's been a really, really good time. So we've got a handful of these left. For those of you who maybe I haven't really put it out there publicly yet anywhere, this will probably be kind of the sunset of what we're doing here over the next few weeks, as I'm getting ready to make a pretty big personal move here. I'm going to take my family overseas to Korea, hopefully by the end of 2023, early 2024, for work. And I'll definitely be in as many leagues as I can be. I just saw, I think Andrew Hall put out on Twitter today, he's pre-apologizing to some commissioners where he may have to cut back on some leagues, but we'll see what that looks like. But if we can keep things going or we can pop back in, you may hear from us, but it may not be right away after the new year. So thank you for everyone that has kept up with us, for folks that have popped in 1 or 2 times. Love having some of the folks in the chat that ask questions and get some dialogue and debate going for us. It should make it more fun. And but yeah, hopefully everybody has a good holiday. Hopefully as many people are off tomorrow. If you're in the service industry or doing something where you're working, we're incredibly grateful for you all and helping us keep things going. So hopefully you find a way to get some time with folks that are important to you. So with that, I think we're going to get out of here for the holiday, Bill.
Yep. Happy Thanksgiving and late